The Stoics had a morning ritual, not elaborate, not requiring special equipment or perfect conditions or an hour of silence before the rest of the world woke up. Just words. Specific words said deliberately to themselves at the beginning of each day. Words that set the mind before the day had a chance to unsettle it. Words that reminded them of what they believed when they were thinking clearly, before the noise arrived, before the urgency arrived, before the world showed up with its version of what today should be about and who you should be inside it. These words functioned like a compass, not a map. A map tells you exactly where to go. A compass tells you which direction is true. And when the day gets complicated, when the situations get messy and the people get difficult and the circumstances get hard, what you need is not a detailed plan. What you need is to know which direction is true, so you can find your way back to it no matter how far the day tries to pull you from it. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He was governing an empire, managing wars, dealing with betrayal and illness, and the full weight of human complexity at the highest possible level. And every single morning he wrote to himself, not to plan the day, to set the mind, to remind himself of what he believed before the day had a chance to make him forget it. Epictetus taught the same practice to his students. Seneca wrote about it in letter after letter, not as philosophy, as survival, as the practical tool that allowed a person to move through a difficult world without being consumed by it. And the remarkable thing about these morning words is not how old they are. It is how completely they still apply, because the world has changed in 2,000 years in almost every way imaginable. But the human mind, facing the human day, has not changed at all. It still struggles with the same things: distraction, comparison, urgency, the gap between who we are and who we want to be, the pull of comfort, the fear of difficulty, the noise of other people's opinions drowning out the quiet voice of our own values. None of that is new, and neither is the solution. 10 words, said to yourself every morning, before anything else. This is the practice that changes not just your mornings, but the entire shape of the life those mornings are building. Before we begin, type this in the comments and mean it. I start today with intention. 1. I will not hurry through today. Slow is how things get done right. There is a speed that most people move through their days at that has nothing to do with genuine urgency. It is the speed of anxiety, the speed of a mind that is always slightly ahead of where the body actually is, already in the next meeting while still in this one, already thinking about the evening while still in the afternoon, already planning tomorrow while today is still happening, and moving at that speed, the anxious speed, the speed that mistakes hurrying for productivity, costs something that most people do not notice until they add it up at the end of a year. It costs quality, it costs depth, it costs the particular kind of attention that makes the difference between work that is done and work that is done well. It costs presence. And without presence, you are not actually living the day you are moving through so quickly. You are just passing through it, getting to the end of it without having been fully in any part of it. The Stoics called this one of the most common and most costly mistakes a person can make: not doing too little, moving too fast through what they are doing to actually do it properly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. The present moment always will have been. The present moment always will have been. Whatever is happening right now, this conversation, this task, this meal, this quiet moment, it will have happened. It will be part of the permanent record of your life. And the question is whether it will be there fully or only partially, whether you were actually in it or only passing through it on the way to the next thing." Slow is not the opposite of productive. Slow is how things get done at the level they actually deserve. The email written slowly and with full attention says what it needs to say. The email written in a hurry says something close to what it needed to say and requires a follow-up. The conversation had slowly and with genuine presence builds something. The conversation rushed through, while half thinking about something else leaves both people feeling vaguely unsatisfied without knowing exactly why. The work done with patience and attention reflects the full capability of the person who did it. The work done in a hurry reflects the minimum available in the time allowed. Say it to yourself this morning. Before the day begins, it's pull toward speed. Before the urgency sets in, before the habit of moving faster than the moment requires takes over, I will not hurry through today. Slow is how things get done right. 2. I owe no one a performance. I only owe myself the truth. There is an exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much you slept. It is the exhaustion of performing, of showing up in rooms and conversations and relationships as a version of yourself that has been carefully assembled for the audience, rather than genuinely expressed from the inside. The version that is always fine, always capable, always slightly more together than you actually are. The version that laughs at the right moments and says the right things, and presents the face that the situation seems to require, rather than the honest face of a person having an actual human experience. That performance is draining in a way that is very hard to articulate because it is so constant and so normalized that most people have stopped noticing they are doing it. They have mistaken the performance for themselves. And somewhere in that confusion, the actual self, the one that is sometimes uncertain and sometimes struggling and sometimes genuinely does not have it together, gets quieter and quieter, until you can barely hear it over the noise of the performance. Epictetus said something that cuts through all of it. He said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. First know what is actually true. Then say that. Not the version that sounds better. Not the version that will be received more easily. The truth, your actual experience, your actual thoughts, your actual state on this particular morning in this particular life. You do not owe anyone a performance, not your employer, not your family, not your social media following, not the people who seem to have it together and whose apparent togetherness makes your actual humanness feel like something to be hidden. What you owe is honesty. To yourself first. The honest acknowledgement of where you actually are, of what you actually think, of what you actually need, because from that honesty, genuine action becomes possible. From performance, only more performance becomes possible, and a life built on performance is a life that is fundamentally exhausting. Not because you are doing too much, because what you are doing is not real. Say it this morning. I owe no one a performance. I only owe myself the truth. And watch how differently the day feels when you show up in it as who you actually are. If you are ready to show up as yourself today, write this below. I show up real, not performed. 3. Small effort done consistently beats massive effort done once. Most people are waiting for the moment when they will finally try hard enough to make a real difference, hard enough to change something that has not been changing, hard enough to close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. They are waiting for the big push, the motivated season, the period when everything aligns and they finally have the energy and the clarity and the conditions that will allow them to make the kind of dramatic effort that produces the kind of dramatic result they are looking for. And while they are waiting for that season, the days pass, without the small effort that was available, without the ordinary, unglamorous, unimpressive, but completely real step forward that today was offering. And the gap between where they are and where they want to be does not close. it stays exactly the same size. Because the big push that was coming kept not coming, and the small step that was available kept being skipped in favor of waiting for the big one. The Stoics understood something about this that most people learn too late. Real change is not the result of the big push. It is the result of the small and consistent step taken on the ordinary days when nothing is particularly motivating and the result is not yet visible. And the only reason to take the step is that it is the right thing to do today. Seneca wrote, "It is not that I am brave, but that I know what is not worth fearing, and what is worth doing is worth doing today. Worth doing today, not in the motivated season, not when conditions are better. Today. With whatever energy and time and resources today is offering, because one small step taken today and tomorrow and the day after that produces something that no amount of waiting for the big moment can produce. It produces momentum, quiet, invisible, accumulating momentum that turns into something real over time, something you can look back on and trace to the small steps that built it, not to the big push that never came. Say it this morning. Small effort done consistently beats massive effort done once, and take the small step that today is offering, before you wait for a better day to take it. 4. I will not confuse being busy with being useful. Busyness is the great disguise of the modern life. It looks like productivity. It feels like effort. It sounds like a life fully committed to something. But busyness and usefulness are not the same thing, and confusing them is one of the most quietly costly mistakes a person can make, because you can be extraordinarily busy without moving anything that actually matters forward by a single inch. You can fill every hour of the day with activity and reach the end of it having produced nothing of real significance. You can be permanently in motion and permanently in place at the same time. Because motion is not the same as direction, effort is not the same as progress, and the feeling of being busy is not the same as the reality of being useful. The Stoics were deeply skeptical of busyness for its own sake. They asked a question that most busy people never stop to ask. Useful to what? Busy in service of what? Moving toward what exactly? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not enough to be busy. The question is, what are we busy about? What are we busy about?" If you cannot answer that question clearly, the busyness is not serving you. It is serving the feeling of productivity without producing the thing that productivity is supposed to produce, which is a life that is actually going somewhere. Today, before you fill the hours with activity, ask the question, is what I am about to do useful? Does it serve something that genuinely matters? Does it move something real forward? Or does it just make the day feel full while leaving the things that actually matter in exactly the same place they were yesterday? The honest answer to that question, asked every morning and followed through on, changes what the day produces, not through more effort, through better direction, through the simple but genuinely difficult practice of choosing useful over busy. Every day, starting today, say it this morning, I will not confuse being busy with being useful. 5. Discomfort today is the price of strength tomorrow. The most important things in your life right now are on the other side of something uncomfortable, not on the other side of something impossible, not on the other side of something that requires more than you have, just something uncomfortable, the conversation that has been avoided, the habit that has been resisted, the work that has been postponed because starting it feels harder than not starting it, the boundary that has not been set because setting it will create friction. All of these things are not waiting for you to become more capable. They are waiting for you to become more willing to sit with the discomfort that doing the right thing sometimes requires, more willing to let the conversation be uncomfortable rather than comfortable and dishonest. More willing to start the work before you feel ready, because ready is not coming before starting. More willing to set the boundary even though setting it feels harder in the short term than not setting it. The Stoics were very direct about this. They did not dress up discomfort as something to be embraced enthusiastically. They simply said that discomfort is the cost of the things worth having, and the person who is unwilling to pay that cost will not get the things worth having, not because life is punishing them, because the things worth having are on the other side of the discomfort, and there is no way to them that does not pass through it. Seneca wrote, "The wise man does not expose himself needlessly to danger, but he is willing when the time comes to meet it." When the time comes, not someday when it gets easier, when the time comes, which is today, which is this moment, which is the thing sitting in front of you right now that you have been waiting to feel more ready for. You are ready. The discomfort you feel about doing it is not evidence that you are not ready. It is the price of the strength that doing it will build. Pay the price today. Collect the strength tomorrow. Say it this morning. Discomfort today is the price of strength tomorrow. 6. I will speak less and mean more today. Words that are everywhere mean nothing. Words that are rare mean everything. That is not a paradox. That is simply how value works. When something is available in unlimited quantities, people stop treating it as valuable. And when something is scarce and deliberate and clearly chosen, people pay attention to it differently. Your words work exactly this way. The person who speaks constantly, who fills every silence, who has a comment on everything and an opinion offered before it was requested, trains the people around them to hear noise rather than signal, to wait politely for the speaking to finish rather than to genuinely listen for what it contains. And the person who speaks rarely but deliberately, who lets silences exist without rushing to fill them, who chooses words with the care of someone who understands that once said they cannot be unsaid, trains the people around them to lean in when they finally do speak, to pay attention, because experience has taught them that when this person speaks, something worth hearing is coming. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Twice as much listening as speaking, not because speaking is bad, because listening is where you receive the information that makes your speaking worth something. Because the person who listens well speaks with a relevance and a precision that the person who is always talking never achieves. Because silence, held with confidence, communicates something that no amount of words can communicate as effectively. It communicates that you are not afraid of the quiet, that you do not need to fill every space with the sound of your own voice to feel secure, that when you do choose to speak, it is because you have something to say rather than because speaking is simply what you do when there is a pause. That quiet confidence is felt by everyone in the room, and it changes how your words land when they finally arrive. Say it this morning. I will speak less and mean more today. 7. I will not let someone else's urgency become my emergency. There is a particular kind of pressure that comes not from your own life, but from the lives of people around you. Their deadline, their panic, their crisis that somehow migrated into your morning and is now sitting in the center of your day, demanding attention and energy and the disruption of whatever you had actually planned to do. And because you are a person who cares about people, because you genuinely want to help and genuinely do not want to let anyone down, you respond. You put down your thing and pick up their thing. You redirect your energy from what you had decided mattered to what they have decided is urgent, and the day that was supposed to be yours becomes theirs. This is not generosity. This is the absence of a boundary that both of you need. because the person whose urgency you absorbed did not necessarily need you to absorb it. They needed to handle it. And the person who rescues everyone from their own urgency does not help them build the capacity to manage it. They just teach them that urgency is an effective lever for accessing your attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people. Keep your eyes on your own path. Keep your eyes on your own path. Not because other people do not matter, because you cannot walk their path and your own simultaneously. And the path you were put here to walk is yours. It requires your attention, your energy, your focused and deliberate effort on the days when those things are available. Other people's urgency will always exist. There will always be someone who needs something now and who communicates that need in a way that makes it feel like your emergency. The question is not whether that pressure will arrive. It will. The question is whether you will have the clarity and the groundedness to feel it without automatically absorbing it, to respond thoughtfully rather than react automatically, to ask whether this is actually yours to carry before you pick it up. Say it this morning before the first urgent message arrives. I will not let someone else's urgency become my emergency. 8. Comparison is the thief of the life I am actually supposed to be living. Somewhere right now, someone is further ahead than you, further along in their career, further along in their relationship, further along financially, further along in building the thing you are trying to build. And if you spend your morning looking at where they are, something quiet but real happens to your energy. Not immediately, gradually. The motivation that was there when you woke up starts to feel slightly less certain. The path that felt clear before you saw theirs starts to feel slightly less worth walking. The progress you have made, which is real and which belongs entirely to you, starts to feel slightly inadequate in comparison to the progress they appear to have made. And the day that could have been spent moving forward on your actual life gets partially spent on the dispiriting business of measuring your inside against someone else's outside, your real life against their highlight reel, your honest progress against their curated presentation of theirs. And that comparison never helps. Not once. Not in any version of any situation has looking at where someone else is and feeling inadequate by comparison made the next step forward any easier to take. Seneca wrote, "It is the sign of a weak mind to be unable to bear wealth, but also unable to bear poverty. It is equally the sign of a weak mind to compare yourself to others. A weak mind compares. A strong mind focuses on the path it is on the progress it has made from where it started, rather than from where someone else currently is, on the next step that is available today, rather than the distant point someone else has reached. Your life is not a race against the lives around you. It is a journey from where you started to where you are genuinely trying to go. And the only comparison that serves that journey is the comparison between who you were yesterday and who you are today, not between where you are and where someone else is. That comparison has never given anyone their life back. It has only taken from it. Say it this morning. Comparison is the thief of the life I am actually supposed to be living. 9. I will do the hard thing first and let everything else follow. You already know what the hard thing is. You knew it when you woke up. It was probably the first thing your mind went to. The thing that has been sitting on the edge of your awareness with a weight that is disproportionate to its actual size. Not because it is impossible, because it requires something from you that is easier to defer than to give. Honesty, effort, courage, clarity, discipline, some quality that the hard thing is asking for and that the easier things on your list do not require. And there is a very specific temptation on mornings like this, the temptation to start with the easy things, to warm up on the tasks that require less, to build momentum on the smaller items so that by the time you get to the hard thing, you feel ready. That strategy feels sensible. It is not, because the hard thing does not get easier as the day goes on. It gets heavier. Every hour you do not do it, it costs you something. Mental energy spent thinking about the fact that it is still undone. Emotional weight from knowing you have been avoiding something you said you would face. The slow accumulation of a day that feels incomplete, not because of what you did, but because of what you did not do. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be a writer, write. Not when you feel ready, not after the easier things are done. If you wish to do the thing first, before the day has had a chance to spend the energy that the thing requires, before the urgency of other people's needs has redirected your attention, before the decision fatigue of a full day has made the thing feel harder than it actually is. First thing, hard thing first, and everything else, the easier things, the smaller things, the things that do not require everything you have, they will follow. They always do. And they will be done with the particular lightness that only comes from having already done the thing that was weighing on you. Say it this morning. I will do the hard thing first and let everything else follow. If you are ready to face the hard thing today, drop this below. Hard thing first, everything else after. 10. Who I am when nobody is watching is who I actually am. There are two versions of most people, the version that shows up when someone important is watching, and the version that shows up when nobody is. And the gap between those two versions is one of the most honest measures of character available. Because it is easy to be your best self in front of an audience. It is easy to be patient when patience is being observed. Easy to be generous when the generosity will be noted. Easy to be honest when honesty is expected, and its absence would be noticed. The real test is not in those moments. The real test is in the moments when nobody is watching, when the shortcut is available and nobody would know, when the unkind thought could become an unkind word and nobody would hear it, when the standard you set for yourself could be quietly lowered without anyone being aware, when you are entirely accountable to no one except yourself. What do you do in those moments? Who are you in those moments? Because that person, the one who shows up when there is no audience and no accountability and no external pressure to perform, is who you actually are. Not the performance version, the real version. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Lose your self-respect. Self-respect is not given by other people. It is built in the private moments, in the choices made when nobody is watching, in the standard you hold yourself to, not because someone will notice if you drop it, but because you will notice, because you are always watching yourself. Even when nobody else is, and the person you are in those private moments is the person you are becoming through the accumulation of all of them. The person who is honest when dishonesty would be easier is becoming an honest person. The person who is generous when no one will see it is becoming a generous person. The person who does the work properly when cutting corners would be undetected is becoming a person of genuine quality. Not in the big public moments, in the quiet private ones, in the moments when nobody is watching. And those are the moments this morning word is about. Say it to yourself now. Who I am when nobody is watching is who I actually am. And let that be someone you are proud of today. 2,000 years ago, the Stoics discovered something that most people today are still searching for. They discovered that the morning is not just the beginning of the day. It is the building of the person who is going to live the day. And the words you say to yourself in those first quiet minutes before the world arrives are not small. They are the architecture of everything that follows. The foundation on which your thinking and your decisions and your responses and your capacity to handle whatever comes are built. Get the foundation right, and the building holds. Let the foundation be built by whatever the world hands you first, and the building is always slightly unstable, always slightly at the mercy of the morning's first distraction, the morning's first urgency, the morning's first notification telling you what to think about before you had a chance to decide for yourself. 10 words, said to yourself every morning, before the phone, before the news, before the inbox and the opinions and the noise. Let us bring them all together. I will not hurry through today because slow is how things get done right. The quality of this day is determined by the attention given to it, not the speed with which it is passed through. I owe no one a performance. I only owe myself the truth. The exhaustion of performing ends the moment you decide that showing up as yourself is enough. Small effort done consistently beats massive effort done once. The step available today matters more than the dramatic push that keeps being postponed to tomorrow. I will not confuse being busy with being useful. Motion without direction is not progress. Useful is the only kind of busy worth being. Discomfort today is the price of strength tomorrow. The thing you are avoiding is the thing that is building nothing. The thing you face is the thing that builds everything. I will speak less and mean more today. The words chosen carefully and rarely carry more weight than the words that fill every available silence. I will not let someone else's urgency become my emergency. The path you are on requires your attention. Not every urgent thing that arrives from outside is yours to carry. Comparison is the thief of the life I am actually supposed to be living. The only comparison worth making is between who you were yesterday and who you are today. I will do the hard thing first and let everything else follow. The hard thing done first makes the whole day lighter. The hard thing deferred makes the whole day heavier. And who I am when nobody is watching is who I actually am. Self-respect is built in the private moments, in the choices made when nobody would know except you. Marcus Aurelius did not become the person history remembers in the public moments. He became that person in the private morning moments, in the quiet before the empire needed him, in the space where he reminded himself of what he believed before the world tried to tell him what to think. That space exists for you too, every morning, before the noise, before the demands, before the day tries to shape you, before you have had a chance to shape yourself. Use it. These 10 words, said with genuine intention, not as a ritual you perform, as a truth you return to. Every morning, for as long as the life you want to live is different from the life you would live without the intention, which is every morning. For the rest of the life, you are building one morning at a time.